Let me say this straight. American politics isn't just influenced in Washington. It's financed halfway across the world. While voters argue red versus blue, billions of Gulf oil dollars quietly grease the gears of U.S. power. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, names you hear in gas prices, not in campaign strategy. But here's the kicker. These governments spend more on U.S. lobbying than most American industries. After 9/11, people assumed Gulf influence would collapse. Instead, it went underground, smarter, cleaner, legal. Former U.S. officials didn't disappear, they switched teams. Ex-generals, ex-cabinet members, ex-intelligence chiefs, all cashing checks from Gulf states while shaping American policy from the inside. And no, this isn't some tinfoil hat conspiracy. This is public record, filed disclosures, congressional testimony, Pentagon contracts. As one former CIA analyst put it, this isn't bribery, it's compliance with better branding. So the real question isn't whether Gulf oil money shapes American politics. It's how deep it goes and why nobody talks about it. Let's start with the money trail. First rule of modern influence, don't break the law, rewrite the room. Since 2016, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar have spent hundreds of millions of dollars on U.S. lobbying and PR, according to Foreign Agents Registration Act filings. Saudi Arabia alone poured over $100 million in a single year at the height of the Yemen war backlash. This isn't brown envelopes, it's think tanks, law firms, media consultants, defense advisors. Want access to Congress? Hire former senators. Need Pentagon credibility? Hire retired generals. Bad press? Drop millions on elite PR firms that reframe the narrative. In 2018, after Jamal Khashoggi's murder nearly blew up U.S.-Saudi relations, Riyadh didn't panic. They spent hard. Lobbying firms swarmed Capitol Hill, warning lawmakers that cutting ties would end American jobs and security. And it worked. Despite public outrage, major arms deals stayed intact. Presidents changed, the policy barely moved. As political scientist Lawrence Wilkerson bluntly said, money doesn't buy votes, it buys access. Access decides everything. This is how influence works in America now. Legal, invisible, and insanely effective. Here's where it gets wild. In America, you don't have to bribe politicians. You just wait for them to retire. Once they're out of office, Gulf money steps in like, good seeing you again. Former U.S. defense secretaries, generals, ambassadors, intelligence chiefs, dozens of them have taken advisory roles, board seats, or consulting gigs tied to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. Some deals pay 6 or 7 figures a year for strategic advice. Let's be real, this isn't about oil logistics. This is about access, credibility, and inside baseball. When a former CENTCOM commander vouches for a Gulf arms deal, Congress listens. When a former ambassador reassures cable news that our partners are reforming, public outrage cools off. After the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, the Pentagon downsized, but Gulf defense budgets exploded. U.S. contractors followed the money, and retired officials followed the contractors. One famous case, a former U.S. general reportedly advised Gulf leadership while the same countries were lobbying Washington for advanced weapons systems. Totally legal, ethically gray, politically powerful. Even President Biden admitted the quiet truth in 2020, saying America has a problem with former officials cashing in on foreign influence. But nothing changed, because the system isn't broken, it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. As one D.C. insider put it, Washington isn't for sale, it's on subscription. And Gulf oil money? That subscription never lapses. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Gulf oil money doesn't pick sides, it buys stability. Democrat, Republican, hawk, dove, doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, American politics runs on 3 things: money, energy security, and weapons contracts. Gulf states check all 3 boxes. The U.S. still relies on the Gulf to stabilize global oil markets. When prices spike, inflation hits American voters fast. So every White House, left or right, keeps the relationship smooth. Then there's defense. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are consistently among the top buyers of U.S. weapons, with deals worth tens of billions of dollars. Those contracts support American factories, jobs, and entire congressional districts. So when lawmakers talk tough on human rights, behind closed doors, the math kicks in. Even Bernie Sanders, one of the loudest critics of Gulf regimes, has seen his efforts blocked repeatedly, not by ideology, but by bipartisan economic interests. And Gulf governments know this game cold. They fund think tanks that brief both parties. They hire lobbyists with both party resumes. They donate to universities, cultural institutions, and policy forums that shape future leaders before they ever run for office. As one former State Department official put it, you don't need to control America, you just need to make yourself indispensable. That's the real strategy, not domination, not conspiracy, dependency. And as long as oil, arms, and influence stay intertwined, American politics will keep listening, quietly. Because when the money talks this smoothly, Washington doesn't interrupt.